everything is allowed. There's no restriction on anything, right? Unless there's God. Nietzsche will pile up onto that one eventually, right? But so all we can really experience is phenomena, and Hegel's book is the phenomena, the phenomenology of spirit. In other words, the study of the phenomena that we think of as spirit. What is spirit? Remember, I've been pointing out that what we really want to mean by this from Leibniz and Berkeley is energy. We don't really have a physical universe in the sense of the logical atoms or whatever that Locke gives us. Instead, when we go down to the basics, what we end up with is energy in an arrangement. And our connection between what we think of as material world and our spiritual world at this point now is it's unified, because everything is actually energy, and it's not the mind of God the way Berkeley said, and if you're Hume and you just say, well, we have no clue about what it is, right? And Kant agrees with that. We can't get to the thing in itself. All we know is the phenomena. Hegel and his generation are going to point out, well, actually, phenomena is all there is. And actually, the thing in itself is observable to me. Kant is being contradictory by saying that there has to be this thing in itself that we can't know anything about. That's dumb. Of course we know stuff about the thing in itself. Whatever we hypothesize about it is based on our conception of it, and our conception of it is phenomenal. Can I see myself? Obviously I see myself. Kant's making another contradictory hypothesis here by saying that there has to be a self, and yet we can't know anything about the self. That's just dumb, Kant. How could you be so dumb? After all, I know all kinds of things about me. That's the subject that I know the most about. That's me. And I'm always aware of what I'm doing. That's the focus of my universe, is myself. But what is it? Well, it's this phenomena that I'm experiencing of self. So for Hegel and his contemporaries, this barrier goes away. And we come to realize that everything is phenomena, everything that we experience, and we know an awful lot about it, but what makes it so difficult is that it's so dynamic. It's constantly changing. So if we go and look at the phenomenology, which is the book that first broke him, into the famous stage, right, in Germany. You're looking at our so Geist is spirit or mind. German is the word Geist. You have Heilige Geist, which is Holy Ghost. But if you're going crazy, you come up with a crazy idea. The German expression is, "Hast du von alle guten Geistern verlassen?" Have you lost your mind? Are you going crazy? You've given up all good Geist? We've got Team Geist, right? Team spirit. So it's kind of interesting. English, we have spirit and mind. German, you really put those two things together, and everything is spirit, everything is mind, everything is energy, but you end up with this dynamic going on. And so if we read the phenomenology, what you get is a very different kind of philosophy book, and Hegel's considered to be very difficult to read. Actually, a lot of people think Kant is more difficult. You know, there's that phrase, you know, the night where all the cows are black. You know, and you're trying to see the cows out in the field and they're all black and it's midnight, you know, no moon or anything. Who are they talking about when it actually seems like Kant was the first one that they were talking about when they said that, but a lot of people apply that to Hegel. But actually, Hegel's books are really much more like a novel, a romantic novel, actually. So instead of Kant saying, well, we've got, you know, the ego, and then we have the time and space, and we have, you know, all these categories of the understanding, and that's the way it is for everybody. When you get to Hegel, you end up with a child. What is a child like? Brand new, right? Child experiences what? We're hypothesizing, right? So he's saying, you know, the child sees a smiling face and you know, a breast, you know, and you know, you're nursing, and the mother gives you a sense of certainty, right? So sense certainty is one of the first chapters. You know, that's the child learning to trust its senses and so on. But then it hits a period where it reaches what we call the terrible twos, right? And the child all of a sudden now has an imagination and can imagine something other than the way it is. And for the first time, the child says, no. You say, come here. And the child says, no. That child has just stepped up in the level of consciousness, because he's now, he, she, or it is available, able to say, no, it can imagine something else. So it's the super sensible world, where our consciousness moves in this direction, right? And then eventually you become aware of your self-consciousness. And so what happens when you become self-conscious? How does Hegel explain the beginning of self-conscious? Sorry. Go figure it out.
AI can figure that out.
They're smart enough to figure out that, hey, you meant this, right? So the first stage, mere consciousness, sense certainty, I'm aware of stuff. And this stage involves sense certainty, perception, and understanding, etc. What happens when we move towards self-consciousness, Selbstbewusstsein, right? We end up becoming aware of ourself as a subject and an object. In other words, there's two of you. Because there's the subjective side of you, the an sich in German, or in French, because the French really get into this stuff, en soi, the en soi, the self, myself, right? And the pour soi in French, the for itself, auf Deutsch, the für sich, right? Für sich, the for itself, right? And so I have an awareness of myself. And what is it that this is phenomena, right? I'm thinking of myself. What am I thinking of as myself? Remember we've already looked at a contemporary, you know, dealing with this through Doug Hofstadter and, you know, others, right? You know, that, you know, what is it that I'm thinking of as myself, right? And the problem, remember, I have with my son Christopher is that he might not be able to do this, right? Is that you think of yourself as a collection of concepts, phenomenologically understood concepts. You know, I think of myself as a human, as a person, as a loving father, as a loving husband that gets in trouble for things that, you know, were misperceived. I didn't mean that. You know, it's I have a social security number. Thank goodness I'm not dead yet, and no one has asked me if I'm dead to make sure, right? So that's worrisome at the moment, because there are live people out there that are getting cut off because, but you're old enough, you ought to be dead by now. 82. No, I'm still alive. Sorry, that's just real, right? These are all concepts that I have in my mind, and I place myself in a whole bunch of them, right? My ID, my past service, my teaching. You guys, I hope, think of me as a teacher. I'm sad to tell you that I'm just pretending. It's an act. I'm not really a teacher. I'm just trying to fool you into thinking that I am. Because why? Because you pay my wife for me teaching the course, right? I've been fooling people for 30 years. I think that's funny because, of course, the way we pretend to be, don't swallow water while you're talking. That doesn't work very well. But while I'm pretending to be something, that is the phenomenal characteristics that I have. I remember Shakespeare says, all the world's a stage and all of us are merely players with our various entrances and exits, right? We're pretending to be something. We study it. How can I be a good whatever? And then I try to do that, to be a good one of those, right? Or maybe a bad one. I want to be a terrible president. How can I be a terrible president? Okay, do these things. Okay. And it turns out you can be a terrible president. There's different categories of success and failure, right? Let's all chat on what is the Signal? Never heard of it. Let's all chat on Signal. And by the way, let's include the editor of The Atlantic. Is this dumb? Yes. Are we talking about secrets? No, none of these were secrets. So you build these conceptual schemas about who you are, and yet at the same time, there's this self that is having the experience that I'm phenomenally aware of because I have all these experiences. And so I am a dialectical process arguing with myself over everything I do. I want to be this. How should I do that? I should click on this button. No, if I click on that button, McAfee will never let me live ever again, because they'll just put a big red thing in front of my screen and never go away unless I buy something. And I don't want to buy something. How can I escape it? They know how to lock my computer up better than I know how to avoid it. So I'm in an argument with myself over don't click on that. That's just one example. I mean, the candy bar. I love the candy bar thing. There's my favorite Snickers. Oh no, don't eat the Snickers. Well, I'm taking enough metformin to kill a horse. I ought to be able to take the Snickers. It won't affect my blood sugar because after all, I've got all this metformin, which is magic. Make sure you have enough metformin and you can eat anything. That's funny. That should be funny, but it's not. I don't know. So in any case, a self-consciousness is a dialectical process that goes on between, he says, a master and a servant. Who's the master? Who's the servant? Well, this adds dimensions to what we mean by a self-consciousness, because for Hegel, self-consciousness is not just my self-consciousness of myself, but at another level, it's my self-consciousness in kind of a dialectic with everyone I'm talking to. The room. Or a single other person. So if I walk into a bar, say I'm still in the dating game, which I haven't been for 52 years. Right? But say I walk into a bar and I want to be cool. I want to hopefully find somebody to at least talk to or something, right? So I'll come in, and first I'm discouraged because they make the bar stools so high up for me that I have to one cheek it, you know. You don't want to sit with your feet like this because you look like Ross Perot in between George Bush and Dukakis, in the debate, and he's sitting on a stool with his feet hanging, and that makes him not look like a presidential candidate, right? So you kind of one cheek it because you want to look like your feet are on the floor, but actually but you can only sit. And there's a beautiful young lady there. Ooh. So you imagine what that young lady is thinking of you. And then you, of course, try to talk with this person, right? And by the way, you know that she is a self-consciousness also, right? And so she's wondering about you and thinking about herself, right? So the complex dimensions that are going on in my own mind are duplicated in this other person, and that other person, and that other. We're all self-consciousnesses. We're all very complex, experiencing this dialectical process that we call self-consciousness. I'm aware of myself. I'm trying to direct how other people view me. I know that they're thinking of me a certain way, so I try to act a certain way to convince them that they would like knowing me, and so on. But when I'm doing this, I think to myself, I know what she's thinking, and I'm wrong, aren't I? I'm totally wrong, but I can mislead myself into thinking that I know what she's thinking. Meanwhile, she's doing the same thing, although she's probably right about knowing what I'm thinking, because they're so much smarter, usually, right? But in any case, you have this complex dialogue going on between me and me,